Okay, look, I know the denial is the first stage of grief, but goddammit, let me cook. Khadgar ain't dead, no way. We think he's dead, but that's because every character in the game thinks he's dead, and at the very least, we did see him get hurt. But it's media. I mean, if I don't see a body, I don't believe it. I think it's a fake out, and who better to do a fake out on than Khadgar? And man, after all that he's going through, he better hit up today's sponsor. Well, in case you haven't noticed, I need glasses, and to be honest, I don't like shopping for glasses in person. They're often expensive, there's a small range, and that's where GlassesUSA.com comes in. They're one of the USA's biggest eyewear retailers. They start from $39, they're up to 70% off retail prices, and they've got all the big brands like your Ray-Bans and your Oakleys, and what I really love is how easy they make it with their quiz and their AR try-on, and you can get their time-limited offers by clicking the links in my description box. Now, if you're anything like me, glasses shopping can rapidly get overwhelming. There are just so many options and so many shapes. So what you can do is use their quiz to figure out what's best for your needs, your style, and your face shape. Then you can use their AR virtual try-on to actually preview what the glasses will look like on your own face, which is so much better than going into a shop with a tiny range and just not really feeling like you've got something that works for you. So that led to me getting these, and I just love the frame shape and the quality. These are the Oakley metal plates in matte black. Of course, matte black looks absolutely lovely. These are super comfy. And then for a bit of a change in lens shape, I actually went for these, which are the Revel Drifts. Again, in black, lovely big lens, different shape. I like a little bit of variety there, and they're lovely when I'm writing. And finally, the wild card, the Revel Tune 2.0s. These are my first foray into smart glasses where basically, right, these will work as a Bluetooth speaker and they've got mics. And that means that just wearing your glasses, you can take calls, listen to content, and use assistants, which is dead handy. Now, GlassesUSA.com have got a massive range, dead handy tools, and loads of options like blue light blocking and things like that. And if you click my link down below, you will get their current time-limited deal, and there you can shop with confidence because they have free shipping, free returns, and a 14-day 100% money-back guarantee. So, a big thanks to GlassesUSA.com for kitting me out and for sponsoring today's video. Okay, now that we know where to get Khadgar's new shades, that was a hell of a cinematic, but you know what? It was not of the tier of Varian's death, and Blizzard have done fake-outs before. As an example, Bolvar dying at the Wrathgate, and then turning up later at Icecrown Citadel, eventually becoming the Lich King. But first, what the hell was Xal'atath doing? Initially, it seemed like the attack in Dalaran was mainly letting her deal with us when we were vulnerable, and then also drawing the Storm Riders away from the Coreway, which let the Nerubians assault it. But that's really not everything that happens when you look at it closely. In the cinematic, she chides us. She says, "This city is home to such power all squandered by the Kirin Tor. I'll put it to much better use." And when we first see her, she's channeling the energies of Dalaran into the Darkheart. Now remember, back in Dragonflight, we learned that the Darkheart is almost a prototype of the Dragon Soul, essentially something capable of harnessing many forms of power, as an example, like the powers of all the different Dragonflights. So while we might think of the Darkheart as being some sort of void thing, we clearly see it doing more here, as an example, slurping up arcane energy. And even that's kind of curious because of the Ethereals. You see, the reason why the Ethereals are energy beings contained within bandages is that the arcane energy that they used to fend off the Void Lord Dimensius ended up just washing across the planet and destroying their physical forms. It's a pretty metal concept, and that arcane energy could withstand a Void Lord is inherently interesting. It makes you wonder, why is Xal'atath collecting it? And if the arcane is strong against the Void, why did Khadgar's beam do so little? I don't know, maybe that won't be relevant, but what we do know is a lot of arcane energy has been dumped into the Darkheart. Either way though, by the time she floats down the stairs, she's no longer putting arcane energy into the Darkheart, and the heart itself is brimming with power. Note that Xal'atath does nothing while Khadgar teleports Illyria away, and I do think she could have done something, like just look at her abilities displayed in this cinematic. If she wanted to stop Illyria being teleported away, she could have. And the answer to why she didn't, I think, is obvious. Illyria is predictable. Illyria's dabbling with the Void is dangerous, and Xal'atath is probably counting on Illyria reacting in a certain way later on. Now then, let's talk about the death of Khadgar. We see a void, a void circle, a void portal, a void hole, something. But if you look closely, you'll notice that it radiates out of the Darkheart. Khadgar, of course, his hand appears, then it gets dissolved, and then the camera cuts to Illyria. And that means that Blizzard specifically went with the creative choice of not showing us the full death of Khadgar. Now remember, whenever Varian Rin died, they very much wanted us to know that he was dead. That's why we saw his body get destroyed. They notably didn't show us that with Khadgar. Then, of course, there's also the small detail that Xal'atath is also going into that big void portal. And yes, from now on, I'm just going to call it a void portal, and you're about to see why. Let's take a look at the exterior shot of Dalaran's destruction. It doesn't just explode. It doesn't just go boom. What you see is the void portal contract, almost fully to a single point, and then it sure does look like it explodes. I mean, there's a flash, but hold on a second and take a look at this. This is the cinematic of Dalaran teleporting to Khadgar. If you step through it frame by frame, you see a flash, then you see an implosion, and then you see a shockwave of energy. That is exactly what we see with Xal'atath's portal. Of course, the difference is when the mages are teleporting the city, they perfectly surround Dalaran and it moves fully intact, whereas Xal'atath just intersected the whole city with a sphere, so obviously when the stuff in the sphere teleports away, the shockwave will then blast apart the earth that the city is built upon. Now, when Xal'atath says she'll put Dalaran's power to better use than the Kirin Tor, do you think she meant I'll use it to kill you and blow up Dalaran? Or do you think she actually wants to do something with that power? I mean, given that she's been spending her time channeling Galakron juice, Old God Blood juice, and Dalaran juice into the heart, I have got to imagine that she has something planned. Something that needs Dalaran's power. Which is what, you may wonder. That's where I have some answers. We know where the portal is centered, in the Violet Citadel, which is where this cinematic takes place. Now, the Violet Citadel is the most important part of Dalaran. It houses the Arcane Vault and the Grand Library. These store some of the most powerful artifacts and spellbooks that have ever existed in the Warcraft universe. Things like the Eye of Dalaran that was used to reconstruct the city after the Horde attacked it, and then by Ner'zhul as a part of his whole portal plan in Warcraft 2. But there's actually a little more here, because Ner'zhul also used the Book of Medivh. Now, of course, Ner'zhul failed, and the book was later recovered and returned to Dalaran, only to then have Arthas assault Dalaran with Kel'Thuzad, and then use spells from the book to summon in Archimonde, leading to the destruction of the city, and that's why, by the way, in the earliest days of WoW, Dalaran was hidden under a purple shield. So the point is, Dalaran doesn't just have power, it also has powerful artifacts and powerful spell books, and that's really just a taste of what that kind of thing can be used for. So if you're a character like Xal'atath, who's all about plans within plans and is very smart, are you going to get the important contents of the libraries of Dalaran and just blow them up? That would be really stupid. That would be a Garrosh tier move. So no, she's too crafty and too resourceful to delete such power, especially when she literally says she will put it to better use than the city's mages, who of course just kept it locked up to study like the big old nerds they are. But that's not where the Violet Citadel ends, because if Blizzard was to be real cheeky, they could tie this back into the mage player of Legion. Of course, the Legion priest was the person who was wielding Xal'atath, and that means they play a historical role in the game's canon. As for the mage, well, also within the Violet Citadel is the Hall of the Guardian, and the Hall of the Guardian was the Legion Mages class order hall, and before that, of course, it was the residence of the Guardian, aka, Medivh and his many different predecessors. So, a perfect opportunity for a Legion callback, or maybe to work in some of the actions of the Legion Mage into the current story. So, we know that Xal'atath absorbed a whole bunch of power, and it looks like she teleported away a chunk of Dalaran with the implosion effect of its teleportation and ensuing shockwave looking just like it did whenever the mages teleported the city on purpose. Of course, you may be wondering, where was it teleported to? And obviously, I don't know what the future holds, so I can't tell you. We don't know if Xal'atath has a base where she likes to shack up, or if she's just rambling about the place as some sort of nomad. Let's go back to Khadgar then. So our characters like Thrall and Jaina, of course, assume that Khadgar is dead. But remember, they've not seen what we have. All they know is that the city went boom and Khadgar was in the city when it went boom. They didn't see the void ball portal thing slurp up Khadgar, but also slurp up Xal'atath. Almost as if it's some sort of portal to somewhere. So what's next for Khadgar? Is Khadgar in for the most I can fix her arc of his life? Well, I'd say probably not. Thus far, Xal'atath has toyed with us, and especially with Illyria. She, in fact, uses Illyria's love of family against her, and that means she can use Khadgar as a lure. Of course, not because Khadgar is family, rather they're old comrades who go way back to the days of the Second War and the initial Alliance journey through the Dark Portal. So the point is that if Khadgar is in Xal'atath's hands, then Zal can basically assume that Illyria will act in a rather predictable way because she does have a track record of doing that, and while he's not family, Khadgar is an old friend who she will deeply respect. As for Khadgar himself, I've seen some interesting options. Some people saying that his arm has been dissolved and maybe he'll end up getting an ethereal arm, and I love that idea visually, but there's a few reasons why it may not work. I think the main one is we can assume the portal then went and consumed the rest of him. Now, I do know there's one place that half of you have got in your mind for where they're teleporting to, and that is the world of Karesh, which was the old ethereal homeworld. Now, we just heard about it in the Darkheart questline, wherein Locust Walker said that Karesh sung a radiant song, just like Azeroth is singing, just before the Void Lord Dimensius arrived. It's one of those things where Karesh has been in the World of Warcraft canon since the Burning Crusade, so the idea of it being used in this expansion is insanely cool, and it is kind of backed up by how Blizzard mentioned it in the very final patch of Dragonflight. So we don't know what's up with Karesh these days, but it certainly would make for a nice Void base, and again, with Blizzard mentioning it, I could totally see us going there. I mean, as an example, take the Dragon Isles. Those have existed in WoW's development history since vanilla, but of course it was only them being mentioned in Battle for Azeroth that actually brought them back into the public consciousness, and that then led to the Dragon Isles being somewhere we would go in the game. And that of course also happened with Khadgar. Khadgar was first mentioned in a book found in Uldaman at the very start of the Dragonflight expansion. So that basically means that anytime Blizzard name drops a place, I think there's a fairly high likelihood that we could go there. I mean, could you imagine? They could turn the part of Dalaran that teleported into a dungeon, it could be part of a raid, it could even end up being our home base. Would that not be cool? I mean, hell, the War Within's beginning was a play on or a subversion of Legion's beginning, right? Because at the start of Legion, we hopped into Dalaran and we zooped off to a new place to deal with a new threat, and we ended up having a major character die. In this case, we tried to go somewhere in Dalaran, Dalaran got blown up, and I think they have faked out a character death. It would be a fun little play in Legion, and that seems to be the energy they've been going for. So to keep that theme, Legion ended up with us venturing to Argus. Is it insane to say that this expansion could end up with us journeying to Karesh, and perhaps even dealing with the Void at some of its most dangerous? I think that would be pretty damn crazy, and to keep the Legion theme going, that could also of course involve the Chamber of the Guardian. Speaking of the Guardian, by the way, also in the Legion expansion, at the very end of the Return to Karazhan dungeon, we saw Medivh pass on the torch to Khadgar, and then he flew away into a portal. And guess what? We have not seen him since, right? He basically decided that the Legion invasion of Azeroth was, fine, something Khadgar could deal with. He flew away to deal with some sort of grander threat. Well, now with Xal'atath, Void Lords, and this World Soul saga, it certainly seems like Medivh is the kind of guy we need, and it sure helps for Blizzard that Medivh has got a good relationship with Khadgar, and of course, with Thrall and Jaina, the player characters with whom he interacted in Warcraft 3. Okay, the final thought then. I know the theory's going out there that Locust Walker is actually Khadgar from the future, and you know what? If Blizzard went in that direction, I'd be a little bit worried because of timey stuff, but you know what? There's actually something that supports that theory, and that is Season of Discovery's shadowy figure. Because you see, the shadowy figure in Season of Discovery looks like an elf. Now, Xal'atath only looks like an elf because she got an elf body in Battle for Azeroth, and that means that if the shadowy figure is Xal'atath, it's somehow her projecting herself back in time or doing some weird stuff. So, if Locust Walker ended up being Khadgar from the future, mentoring Illyria, I mean, as much as I'm worried about timey-wimey bollocks, that actually goes so hard, I think I'd be in favor of it. Let me know what you think, but don't click off yet because I do have more lore for you. Over on Bellular.gg, which is basically our home in the internet, we have posted multiple episodes of the Lore Walking podcast diving deep into issues surrounding, of course, the new expansion. We've got multiple lore angles, and I think, actually, Jared, well, he published an article that basically was a mind blow for me that it's just one of the best bits of lore stuff I've read, and it is about what could be coming next. I think it is amazing. amazing deductions. So if you're a member over there, you can go and enjoy that content. If you want to stay in YouTube, check out the video that I did on the history of Dalaran. That one was also led by Jared, and let's just say the two of us had fun playing a little coy with the fate of Dalaran. But seriously, if you want to actually know about the city, what happened to it if you didn't play Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3, I think you'll love it. Okay, that's it for me. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.